Alex Mercer sat rigidly in his chair, eyes scanning a cascade of encrypted data streams scrolling across the primary display. The rhythmic tapping of his fingers on the keyboard punctuated the tense silence that had settled over the room. Despite the recent crisis having been averted, unease gnawed at him. The sabotage might have been stopped, but the threat was far from over. A subtle anomaly had caught Alex's attention earlier that day, a series of encrypted transmissions hidden within what should have been routine communication logs. The sophistication of the cloaking methods was impressive, but not flawless. Someone, or some group, was still operating covertly aboard the station, weaving a web of espionage far more complex than the overt sabotage attempts that had been uncovered. Dr. Lena Ortiz entered quietly, her presence a calming contrast to the cold, technical environment. "Alex," she said in her measured tone, stepping closer to the console. "I've been analyzing the station's sensor data and system logs. There are irregularities, fluctuations in the environmental controls and power usage that don't correspond to any authorized activity." Alex nodded, his sharp eyes reflecting the screen's glow. "I'm seeing similar patterns in the comms. Someone's masking their movements very carefully. It's like a ghost network embedded within the station's systems." Lena frowned, adjusting her glasses as she pulled up additional data. "If we don't find the root cause, these irregularities could be the precursor to another attack. Or worse, a slow-acting sabotage, undetectable until it's too late." Outside the command center, the station hummed steadily, its intricate systems performing their endless dance in zero gravity. But beneath the surface, beneath the polished facade and the tense diplomatic veneer of the summit, a deeper danger lurked. Alex's thoughts drifted briefly to Marcus Vale, the enigmatic corporate delegate whose loyalties had been a source of endless suspicion. When they had crossed paths earlier that day in the station's narrow corridors, neither had spoken. Instead, their eyes had exchanged a silent wariness, a tacit acknowledgement of the unspoken threats that remained. The weight of trust, or the lack thereof, bore down on Alex. Everyone aboard was a potential ally or adversary, and the lines between the two blurred with each passing hour. The zero-gravity environment compounded the tension, making every movement deliberate, every encounter fraught with the possibility of unseen danger. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Raj Patel moved through the station's labyrinthian mechanical corridors, his flashlight casting long, wavering beams against the cold metal walls. The faint echoes of his footsteps were a reminder of the station's vastness and isolation. Roger's expertise would be critical if the sabotage network attempted to exploit the station's complex infrastructure again. Back in the command center, Alex initiated a secure channel to his core team. "We're not out of the woods yet," he said, his voice low but firm. "There's a covert network still active. We need to tighten security, monitor communications closely, and be prepared for anything." Lena's eyes met his, determination shining through the fatigue. "We'll find them, Alex. We have to." As the station orbited silently above the Earth, a subtle tension filled the air, a silent promise that the battle for Helix 1 was far from over. Shadows moved unseen, alliances shifted in the dark, and the fragile peace of the summit hung by a thread. Alex leaned back in his chair, steeling himself for the long fight ahead. In the void of space, trust was the rarest commodity, and betrayal the deadliest weapon. The encrypted data flickered once more on the screen, as if daring him to unravel the mystery before it was too late. Alex Mercer floated there, the subtle glow of distant stars casting a pale light through the reinforced glass walls. Outside, the infinite void stretched endlessly, a cold and indifferent expanse that mirrored the heaviness settling deep inside him. He pressed a hand against the glass, feeling the slight vibration of the station beneath his palm, a tangible reminder that he was alone, not just physically isolated, but wrapped in a cocoon of solitude that seemed to grow heavier with each passing day. Zero gravity had always been a challenge, but now it felt like a prison. The way bodies drifted, disconnected from the reassuring pull of the earth, echoed the disconnection he felt from the world and, sometimes, even from himself. His mind churned with memories, ghosts of past failures that haunted the edges of his consciousness. The sabotage incident on the previous station had left scars invisible to the eye, but deeply etched in his psyche. Every creak and groan of helix, one seemed to whisper warnings, dredging up doubts about his ability to protect this fragile haven. He closed his eyes, breathing in slowly, forcing himself to focus not on the shadows of the past but the pressing demands of the present. The summit was still underway, and the threat of destruction loomed larger than ever. Yet in this moment of quiet, Alex confronted the raw truth of his isolation, not just the physical distance from Earth or the absence of solid ground beneath his feet, but the emotional chasm carved by distrust and betrayal. His thoughts were interrupted by a low rumble, a subtle but unmistakable vibration coursing through the station's frame. The warning systems had not sounded, but Alex's instincts snapped to attention. He pushed off from the glass with controlled force, muscles coiling as he maneuvered through the narrow corridors toward the source. The familiar weightlessness was disorienting, but it also sharpened his senses. Every sound, every movement amplified in the stillness. In the engineering sector, the faint glow of emergency lights bathed the room in a reddish hue. Chief Engineer Raj Patel was already there, working feverishly alongside Dr. Lena Ortiz, whose calm presence was a bomb amid crisis. Alex's eyes met Lena's, and in that brief exchange was an unspoken acknowledgement of the stakes. They were all fighting, not just for survival, but to reclaim a semblance of control in a world that seemed increasingly chaotic. "Another power fluctuation," Lena said quietly, her voice steady despite the tension. "The sabotage is escalating." Alex nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "We can't afford to lose control. Not now. Later." Back in his quarters, Alex struggled with restlessness. Sleep evaded him, replaced by a restless energy that propelled him to the station's small gym module. There he began a rigorous routine of exercises, push-ups, resistance training, controlled movements that anchored him in his body despite the absence of gravity. Sweat gathered at his brow, a visceral reminder that he was alive, that his body could still respond, still fight. The physical exertion was cathartic, a way to wrestle back the spiraling thoughts that threatened to consume him. Each movement was a declaration of defiance against the creeping isolation, a promise to himself that he would endure. Yet even as his muscles burned, a quiet voice within cautioned him strength alone would not be enough. He would have to confront the shadows in his mind as fiercely as any external threat. The following day brought a brief respite. Alex found himself in the station's common area, a compact space where a handful of crew and delegates gathered. The atmosphere was taut, conversations hushed and cautious. He caught sight of Lena across the room and approached, grateful for the anchor of familiarity. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her eyes searching his face. He hesitated, then allowed a faint smile. "Better, now. It's the silence that gets to me sometimes." She nodded knowingly. Isolation can be as dangerous as any saboteur. It eats away at clarity and courage. But we're not alone here. Not if we keep trusting each other, Alex finished, the weight of the words settling between them like a fragile bridge. Their conversation was brief but meaningful, a small island of connection amid the vast sea of uncertainty. It reminded Alex that survival depended not just on vigilance and skill, but on the strength drawn from others, even when trust was a scarce commodity. As the station orbited silently above Earth, Alex returned once more to the observation bay. The stars outside twinkled with indifferent brilliance, but within him burned a renewed resolve. The weight of isolation was heavy, yes, but it was a burden he was ready to bear. For the sake of Helix 1, for those who relied on him, and for the fragile hope that even in the darkest voids, light could be found. The sabotage was far from over. But Alex Mercer would not let the darkness consume him, not this time. With every breath, every heartbeat, he prepared to face whatever lay ahead. Anchored by the hard-earned knowledge that resilience was forged in the crucible of isolation and tested in the fires of trust. And as the station drifted through the silent expanse, Alex's thoughts sharpened into a single, unyielding question. How far was he willing to go to protect Helix 1, and at what cost would survival come? The quiet hum of the station was suddenly pierced by a sharp alarm, an ominous reminder that the fight was just beginning. Alex's eyes snapped open, muscles tensing as he prepared to move. The weight of isolation was real, but now it was a challenge he met head-on, fueled by determination and the unbreakable will to endure. The void awaited, vast and merciless, but so did he. Voices, usually subdued and professional, now carried sharp edges, fragments of suspicion and frustration that threatened to shatter the fragile truce the crew had managed to hold since the last sabotage attempt. Alex Mercer moved deliberately, his steps steady despite the uneasy weight settling in his chest. The station was no longer just a corporate summit venue. It was a crucible where trust was a scarce commodity. As he rounded the corner near the central hub, the low murmur of voices escalated abruptly into raised tones. Peering around the corner, Alex caught sight of Marcus Vale and Jenna Wu locked in a heated exchange. Marcus's tall frame was rigid, his eyes flashing with accusation, while Jenna stood her ground, fists clenched at her sides, a hard edge to her usual composed demeanor. "You're hiding something," Marcus said, voice low but cutting. "I see how you look at the logs, like you've got something to hide." Jenna's reply was swift and sharp. "And you think throwing around baseless accusations helps? Maybe you're the one whose loyalties are questionable." The air between them crackled with animosity, the sterile hum of the station's systems the only other sound in the confined space. Alex stepped forward, raising a hand to command attention. "Enough," he said firmly. "This isn't helping. We're all under enough pressure without tearing each other apart." Both turned to face him, the tension palpable. Marcus's calculating gaze met Alex's steady, sharp eyes, while Gina's expression softened just enough to acknowledge the intervention. "We need to remember what's at stake," Alex continued, his voice low but resolute. "The station, the summit, our lives. We can't afford fractures like this, not now." Marcus gave a curt nod, though the distrust lingered in his features. Jenna's posture relaxed slightly, but the fire in her eyes remained. Alex knew better than to expect instant harmony. The wounds of suspicion ran deep. Later, Alex convened an emergency meeting in the station's conference module. The circular table floated serenely in the zero-gravity environment, papers and digital tablets tethered to prevent them from drifting away. Around it sat the remaining key personnel: Dr. Lena Ortiz, Raj Patel, Jenna Wu, and Marcus Vale. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken doubts. Alex cleared his throat, drawing their attention. "We're at a critical juncture," he began. Sabotage attempts have escalated, and the fractures among us are growing. We need to present a united front if we're going to get through this." Dr. Ortiz nodded, her dark curls framing a face marked by fatigue but resolute. "Technical systems are stabilizing, but any further internal conflict will jeopardize everything." Raj Patel shifted in his seat, his calm demeanor a steadying presence. "The engineering bay is running at full capacity to patch damage, but morale is slipping." Marcus's gaze flicked between the others, calculating as always. Trust is fragile, but necessary. We can't ignore the possibility of more infiltrators. Jenna leaned forward, voice steady. "Then we need transparency. No more secrets." Alex met their eyes in turn, agreed. "From now on, all critical information is shared openly. We'll hold daily briefings. No one acts alone." The group exchanged cautious looks but slowly nodded in assent. The fragile alliance held for now. As the meeting adjourned, Alex lingered, watching his team disperse through the softly lit corridors. The weight of leadership pressed down on him more heavily than ever. Trust was not given freely here. It was earned, tested, and often broken. Later, in the engineering bay, Raj Patel and Dr. Ortiz worked side by side amidst the hum of machinery and the faint scent of ozone. Raj's hands moved deftly over control panels, rerouting power and patching breaches, while Lena monitored system diagnostics, her brow furrowed with concern. "We're holding, but just barely," Raj said quietly. "If there's another hit like the last one, we might not recover in time." Lena glanced at the flickering readouts. "We need more eyes on the systems, more hands working as one, but the distrust is spreading." Raj sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "We'll have to be careful. Every step counts." Meanwhile, Alex found a moment of solitude on the observation deck. Outside the reinforced glass, the cold void of space stretched infinitely, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic tension within Helix 1. The stars shimmered like distant promises, indifferent to the turmoil inside. He pressed his palm against the glass, the smooth surface cooled beneath his fingers. "We're all just trying to survive," he whispered to the silence. "But survival means more than just breathing. It means trusting each other, even when it's the hardest thing to do." His reflection stared back at him, sharp eyes shadowed by fatigue, a lean frame tense with responsibility. The scars of past betrayals ran deep, yet beneath them flickered a stubborn flame of determination. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life, breaking the quiet. Alex straightened, steeling himself. The fragile bonds aboard Helix 1 were being tested, but he was resolved to hold them together. The coming hours would demand everything he had and then some. As he turned back toward the station's interior, the weight of the fractured bonds pressed heavily on his shoulders. The question remained, could he keep the crew united, or would the paranoia and fear tear them apart before the true threat could be confronted? The battle for Helix 1 was far from over, and the fractures within could prove as deadly as any external attack. With a final glance at the endless blackness beyond, Alex Mercer stepped back into the fray, ready to face the storm brewing inside. Alex Mercer sat rigidly in the center, his sharp eyes fixed on the encrypted data streams scrolling rapidly across the main display. Beside him, Dr. Lena Ortiz's fingers flew over the console's interface, her brows knit in concentration as she struggled to unravel the dense layers of security woven into the intercepted communications. Chief Engineer Raj Patel leaned in close, the faint scent of burnt circuitry lingering in the recycled air as he monitored the station's operational readouts. "This isn't just a random attack," Lena murmured, her voice taut with tension. These packets' multiple transmissions, all timed and coded, point to a coordinated effort. It's not just Helix, one on the line. Other orbital stations could be targets. Alex's jaw tightened. The implications hit him like a cold slap. The sabotage that had nearly destroyed Helix 1 was only a fragment of a far larger and more insidious threat. The corporate summit's chaos had obscured a wider conspiracy, one that stretched beyond the confines of this station, threatening the fragile infrastructure of orbital commerce and governance. "How soon?" Alex asked, his voice low but urgent. Lena glanced up, her dark eyes reflecting the holoscreen's glow. Some transmissions suggest imminent action. Days, maybe hours. They're moving fast. Rog slammed a fist lightly against the console. "We need to reinforce defenses, patch vulnerabilities. But with limited manpower and resources, it's a race against time." Alex nodded, feeling the familiar knot of pressure tighten in his chest. The zero-gravity tension that had gripped the station during the previous sabotage now seemed to expand exponentially, wrapping around the entire orbital network like a tightening noose. He rose, muscles taut, and floated toward the viewport. Outside, the vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, a black canvas dotted with distant stars and the faint silhouettes of neighboring stations. The silence of the void was deafening. "We can't let this spiral," Alex said quietly, turning back to his team. "We need a strategy, fast, precise, and adaptive. We have to assume the enemy is watching, waiting for us to make a mistake." Lena exhaled deeply, adjusting her glasses. "I'll focus on decrypting more transmissions. If we can anticipate their moves, we can stay one step ahead." Rog tapped into the station's security grids. "I'll coordinate with external contacts to alert other stations and request backup. We're not just defending Helix 1 anymore. This is a networked attack." Alex's mind raced through contingencies, recalling every lesson from his past missions. The scars of previous betrayals and failures weighed heavily, but he refused to let them define this moment. "We'll need tighter protocols on all access points," he said, eyes narrowing. "No one gets through without clearance. Jenna and the security team will need to be on high alert. We can't afford another breach." The hum of the station's systems seemed to grow louder, a reminder of their fragile lifeline. Outside, the soft pulse of the station's external lights cast eerie patterns on the viewport, shadows swirling in zero gravity. Lena's voice cut through the tension. "I've managed to decrypt part of a message. It mentions Project Eclipse, some coordinated strike targeting critical infrastructure across multiple stations. If they succeed, it could cripple orbital communications and supply lines." Alex's heart pounded. "Then we're not just fighting for Helix 1, we're fighting for every soul out here." The team sprang into action, coordinating their efforts with a grim urgency. Alex mapped out patrol schedules, layered surveillance protocols, and emergency response plans. Lena continued her decryption work, racing against the clock to expose the full scope of Project Eclipse. Rog worked tirelessly to fortify the station's systems, patching vulnerabilities and liaising with external contacts. Days passed in a blur of tension and preparation. The zero-gravity corridors became a gauntlet of security checks and silent vigilance. Alex's physical agility and analytical mind were pushed to their limits, as was his ability to trust those around him. Paranoia simmered beneath the surface, but the necessity of alliance outweighed suspicion, at least for now. One evening, as Alex floated through the dimly lit command center, the faint crackle of a secure channel interrupted the silence. Lena's eyes widened as she recognized the voice on the other end, an informant from a rival corporation. offering fragmented intelligence about a mercenary cell mobilizing for the attack. "We're running out of time," Alex said grimly, absorbing the new information. Project Eclipse isn't just a planet's a countdown. The weight of the revelation pressed down on him, but beneath the pressure, a steely resolve took root. The war for space was escalating, and Helix 1 was at the epicenter. As the station orbited silently above Earth's atmosphere, Alex stared into the void beyond the viewport, the infinite darkness reflecting the uncertain future. The battle ahead would test every ounce of his strength, cunning, and trust. "We survive this," he vowed, voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "Or we don't survive at all." The chapter closed on that fragile promise. The silent hum of Helix won a heartbeat against the vastness of space, a beacon of defiance in the face of encroaching shadows. The new threat was not just on the horizon, it was already here, and the fight for survival was only beginning.